I'm going to read you a story. This is a story I wrote 20 years ago. And I started writing 20 years ago, and I published it 10 years ago. And it's called The Tunnels of Beldgare. I apologise for it being back to front. And I am hoping to republish this. I've been reading it again, and there are lots of little things that I want to tweak, and I'd really love to do all the proper illustrations for it. But I thought you might like to hear it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a chapter and release a chapter at a time. We'll see how we go. The Tunnels of Beldgare by Jenny Cole. Sundor. The rain was mild for the time of year, each droplet following the millions before it as it tumbled down to the already sodden ground. A patchwork of chocolate-coloured fields, with only a hint of greenery, covered the landscape, intricately woven with dying trees and half-destroyed houses, and the occasional lake. People milled around, glad of the break in the weather. The farmers returned to their toils, ploughing the ground as though it were treacle. Cows and sheep waded across pastures looking for anything to eat. A house fell down, giving up the exhausting struggle to remain upright. This was out. This was a place you were born to. No one chose this life. It was chosen for you, and the only way to leave was to be selected. In was different. This part of the planet was covered in glistening domes which contained cities and towns, farms and pleasure complexes. Sundor was one of the largest domes. It shimmered on the muddy horizon, casting an eerie glow over out. Outside the domes there were no laws. You could do what you wanted, provided that what you wanted was to stay outside them. Domers didn't really like outies, mainly as they were always wet due to the weather discharge. Once a year, the domers allowed the outies into the dome to find jobs. The outies found work and warm weather, and the domers found cheap labour and an easing of their social conscience. "Get off!" yelled a woman trying to prise a pair of mud-soaked trousers from a cow's hungry jaws. "Go on with you, shoot!" The cow eventually understood and paddled off across the field. Anna, get out here!" A girl of about 12 stepped through the doorway of a small house, held together with mud and willpower. She had a shock of red hair and was covered in mud and freckles. "Take these in, will you, and tell Mac we are to leave in 10 minutes. Anna took the garments from her mother and ran back into the house. "Mac, you ready? We've got to go." Anna was excited. She was going to the city dome. Her mother, Eunice, was taking her brother to Sundor to help find employment, and as Anna was much too much trouble for her neighbours to look after, she was going as well. Mac was eventually ready. He'd chosen the cleanest looking clothes that he owned and had washed back his hair. At length he joined Anna with them and their mother at the gate to start their journey to the city dome. Eventually they got to the great golden gates which separated the two civilizations. There was a long line of people waiting to enter the dome. Anna and her family joined the end and waited their turn. "Papers!" bellowed a large guard as he reached out his saucer-like hand towards Eunice. Hesitantly she passed them over for the guard and his colleagues to check. "You may pass," he finished as he thrust the papers back at Eunice. Once through the gates there was an immediate change in the environment. The air was warm, the sky light and blue. It was weather none of them had seen before. The fields were bright shades of green and the trees inviting. As they walked down the main street to the centre square, they noticed how different life was in the dome. This dome had been fitted with a 2004 range in high-tech weather systems. Anna had read about it in her Outies Weekly. The weather was more portable than the early series. Here you could hire rain clouds for an afternoon to water your garden. You could order an extra burst of sun just to shine on you, or you could acquire a small harmless twister to spin dry your washing. All in all, it was a very strange sight. So many different weathers floating around the dome, heading off to their respective jobs. When they reached the centre square, there were hundreds of stalls, each with its fair share of customers and people all around the edges. Anna decided to investigate one of the stalls and managed to squeeze between two very damp people. It was amazing. There were jars everywhere. Each one contained bright colours that shone when you looked at them. She looked harder at a yellow one close to her. There seemed to be something in it moving around. Anna had picked up an ornate jar with a golden lid, the contents of which, on further inspection, proved to be a small, pea-sized sun. It moved around the jar, shining brightly. She looked at another jar, but this one was blue. There didn't appear to be anything making it blue. In fact, she could see through it. On the lid was the inscription, "Air. Guaranteed 1 fresh breath." She'd always heard of these. In fact, her mother had often said she should go out for a breath of fresh air, but she had never assumed it came in a jar. "Hey, look at this, Anna," shouted Mac over the crowd of people. "It's a star stall." "Get your shooting stars here, freshly plucked, make a wish." The rounded lady selling the stars was lavishly dressed in violet, with golden beads sewn all over the bodice. Her hair was long and flowing and had been tied neatly around her voluptuous waist like a hairy yellow sash. Her voice was rosy and cheerful. "Here you are," she said, and she handed Anna a small box. "Now be careful with it now. It's very valuable." Anna took the casket and slowly opened it. Inside there were what looked to be hundreds of stars, maybe even hundreds and thousands of tiny stars, floating around in the box. She was holding a galaxy. She wondered which one it might be and whether it was being missed. How much is it?" she asked, as she looked up. But there was no one there. There wasn't even a gap in the crowd. It was as if the lady had never been there at all. Perhaps she hadn't. She pocketed the box and walked off to find Mac and her mother. "Oh, there you are. Where have you been?" came a voice over the crowd of people. "We've been looking everywhere for you." Anna looked up into the faces of her mother and brother. They were beaming all over. "Look what this woman gave me." Anna started trying to get the box out of her pocket. I got work," shouted Mac, a little too loudly. "I'm going to live in the city." Good, thought Anna to herself. "Your brother is very clever, weren't you?" said Eunice as she pinched his cheek. "Mummy's clever little boy." "What's he doing then?" "I'm going to be trained as a weather cleaner." He stood proudly showing off a sparkly new badge pinned to his chest. On it read, "Trainee Clean Weatherer." "He starts tomorrow, so come on, off we go. Lots of packing to do and not enough time to do it all in." That evening was completely consumed with packing all of Mac's belongings and cleaning him up for his new job. He would be living in the City Dome now. He would be allowed home for holidays, and his family could visit him whenever they wanted, as long as it didn't interrupt his work or coincide with official rest periods. Apart from that, his time was his own. Eunice and Anna walked to the gates with Mac. He gave his mother a little hug and gently punched his sister on the arm. Then, handing over his papers, he went through the gates and was gone. The walk home was even longer than the walk there, since Eunice was walking slowly and occasionally sobbing deeply. "Look, Mum," said Anna, remembering the box the lady had given her. "A lady gave me—" It wouldn't budge. The box remained tightly secure in her pocket. "Oh, what, dear?" said Eunice, just realising her daughter was saying something. "I got this in the city She pulled, and it wouldn't move. It was stuck fast. She got the feeling that it was trying to hide. But why? It was only a box. Then she remembered the galaxy, the never-ending constellations of stars, the complex patterns of novas and planets slowly rotating in the box. Maybe it wasn't a good idea to show it to anyone. Maybe it was best kept a secret. "That's nice, dear," said her mum absent-mindedly. "I know you'll miss him too." That evening, when the sun was setting for a good night's sleep on the distant horizon, Anna found she was all alone. She reached for the box in her pocket again, and it came out with ease. No hint or a struggle at all. She opened the lid and gazed in. Anna watched a small twinkling star travel around the box. She followed it for what seemed like hours until the star eventually disappeared from sight. Anna woke out of her daze. Felt like morning now. She must have been looking in the box all night. But she hadn't. The sun was still setting outside. No time had passed at all. The box had transported her into an intense daze that had lasted no time at all. Horrified, she put it at the bottom of a large crate and left it there, forgotten. That's chapter 1 of The Tunnels of Beldgare. I hope you enjoyed, and if you would like to hear the next chapter, let me know below. Thank you for listening to chapter 1. What do you think so far? I wonder what's going to happen with Anna. Will the box ever stay hidden and forgotten? Questions. Anyway, thank you very much for listening, and if you're interested and would like to hear chapter 2, pop a comment down below. I'll see you soon.